Hi, you're back with Alfonso Muchacho, and this is another episode of Life Advice. You asked me for advice, and I give your life some advice. So, loads of questions came in last week, so let's get down to it. Number one, you talked last time about remix deadlines. How does the process work with the record label? So, usually what happens with a record label is they'll get a track that they like. If they only get maybe one track and they can't release an EP with just the one track, they'll look for remixes. They might look for a couple of remixes. It might just be you doing a remix. They'll approach you and say, hey bro, we need a remix on this track, and they'll send you the track and you can listen to it. Do you like it? My advice at this point is to work out if there's anything in the track that interests you that you think, oh, I could change that and I could make that into something interesting. The last thing you want to do is choose a track that's already really boring and you're thinking, I just don't know what elements to pick out. So use your imagination and think, where would I take this track? So at that point you'll go, yes, okay, that sounds really good. The most crucial part is, yes, that sounds really good. What is the deadline? And then the record label will say, hey, 2 months okay, 6 weeks okay, by Christmas. What I always do at this point is I go, yes, no problems, send the parts over and I will have this done by, and then you put the date in. So if they say, hey, it's 2 months time, so I will look at the calendar, it's say the 9th of October, I will say, yes, no problem, I will have this to you by the 9th of December, because what always happens is 3 weeks later, the record label message you, go, hey bro, how's that remix going? Or, hey bro, have you finished it yet? And what they'll see is the message just above that says, I will have that done by the 9th of December. So it's always really good to get the date set in stone, so you both know when it's going to be done by. Obviously, you're going to try and get it to them before then, but things happen. So then what happens is the record label will send over the remix part for you. You'll notice I haven't even talked about royalties or anything like that. So if the record label hasn't mentioned it by this point, we will offer you money for doing this remix, or how much would you charge? Then what will be expected is you'll get a percentage of the royalties. Usually this is 50% split between you and the label or you and the artist. Depends on how it's got it set up. Usually a record label will tell you up front if they're going to pay you for it. And if they don't say anything, you might want to say, what's the royalty split? How is this going to work? But it's polite just to talk about the remix. Make it all about the music first and the money comes later. But it's good to know what you're going to get. So once you've got that sorted out, let's say they are giving you a 50-50 split of the royalties, you're happy with that. You're going to sell millions of this remix anyway, so you're going to be rich. So you get all the stems. So the record label will send you the stems in a zip file. They're usually between, say, like 8 and 20 different parts of the track, and they will usually be in a WAV file. You might, if you're really lucky, depending on the artist, if the artist is really nice, they might send you the MIDI files, because the most annoying part about doing a remix for someone else is when you get the WAV file sent to you, and you can quite easily work out what BPM is, but sometimes I just can't figure out what the key is, and I'll spend an hour trying to figure out the key of the track, because the bass line might just be hitting a note in A, but that doesn't mean the key of the track's in A. Who knows what they've done? So it's really handy when you get MIDI notes through. You can immediately see when they're playing chords, you go, oh, okay, this is a D minor, exactly. It really speeds up the process. So if you're getting a remix done by someone else, always just write the key in like a note somewhere for them, because I've had a lot of problems with this in the past. I always figure it out in the end, but it always takes so long. So you get all the bits. You listen to the stems, and then what will happen is you'll go off and make your own track and just completely ruin the original. Then when it's finished, send it back to the label. The label will go, or no, and then that's it. And then you'll probably wait 3 or 4 months, not hear about a deadline, and then wake up one morning and it will already be on Beatport or Spotify, and they won't have told you about the deadlines or anything like that. But I'm not bitter. Doesn't happen much anymore. Used to happen to me a lot. Doesn't happen that much anymore. The communication's getting better. Well, the labels I deal with now are a little bit better than the ones I was dealing with before, so a bit more professional. But that's generally how it works. You can, if you're feeling cheeky, I have done this a couple of times, message the record label, say, hey, that track's really good. If you ever need a remix for it, let me know. And then it might put that seed in the mind of the record label owner, saying, yeah, we could do with some remixes of that. That'd be really cool. But usually they approach you. So that's generally how it works. Question number two, how will I know I'm making good music and how will I not be biased by the fact that I made it? So 2 main points here. Number 1, stop asking your friends. Unless your friends are producers and they've been doing it a long time, they're very honest, they're not going to know what they're talking about. All my friends and family thought every track I made at the beginning was amazing because I made it. And believe me, the tracks I was making were not amazing. Believe me, I'll play a few of them to you one day. They were atrocious. And they think this because they don't know how to make a record, and they just hear music and go, yeah, it's good, it sounds like music. So don't ask friends and family unless they really know what they're talking about. Number 2, labels will tell you whether your music's good enough. And by this, I mean, if you send your track to, let's say, 20 labels and none of them want to sign it, then maybe that track wasn't quite up to standard. Now, this is dependent on you sending your tracks to the right kind of record labels, of course. There's no point sending a breakbeat dubstep record to a techno label because they're going to refuse it. And also, if let's say you're making techno and you say, yeah, I'm just going to hit up drum code and send them my new track, you might be aiming a little bit too high. So aim at the right level where you want to, where you fit in the scale. I'm guessing if you're asking this, you're kind of a beginner, so aim for labels that give chances to beginners. Send out a bunch of demos. Just because you get one no doesn't mean your track's bad. It might just be the wrong track at the wrong time for the label. The label might be busy, so persevere with it. But as I say, if you're getting like 10, 20 no's, then maybe that track wasn't good enough. So that's a good indication. Another thing to do is mix your tracks into other tracks. So kind of like a DJ would. So have a professional, great record that you like, and then blend your track into it and notice, does it immediately sound like amateur? Does something drop away? This is a really good way of finding out if something's wrong with your track. Like, do you lose a load of high end? Do you lose a load of energy in the mids? Is the bass too loud? You'll get a good comparison when you're mixing it into another track. So that's always a really good place to start. So question 3, is it okay to compress kick and bass for punch? So I assume you mean the same time in a group, compressing them both together? Well, it doesn't really matter, really. Generally, I compress my bass a lot. And really what I mean is I limit my bass a lot. And there's a difference here. So there's a big difference between limiting and compression. Compression lets peaks through. So it just kind of massages the sound and should be used when you're trying to tame things gently or impart a characteristic. Limiting is when you want the peaks to not go above a threshold, when you really want to stop a sound poking through and you want to tame those transients. With bass, I find you can really go far with limiting and do quite a lot of limiting. With the kick drum, I never compress or limit my kick drum because usually the kick drum is the loudest part of the track and it will always get limited right at the end anyway. So bass lines, I use quite a bit of limiting. Kick drums, I don't use any, but there aren't really any rules. I just don't understand why you would want to compress a kick drum at the beginning and then compress it again at the end. It doesn't make any sense to me. But that's just the way I work. Number 4, how do you recommend switching off after a busy day? I wish I knew. I really, really wish I knew. This is something I've had a lot of problems with for a long time. I find it really difficult to relax. I find it really difficult to switch off. I'm not one of these people that finds it difficult to get up in the morning. I can get up very easily. I've always got a lot of energy, which sounds like a great thing because a lot of people struggle getting up in the mornings. I'm the opposite. I love getting up early in the mornings, but the flip side to that is I find it really difficult to relax and get to sleep and that kind of thing. And it doesn't even mean that there has to be something on my mind that's worrying me. It's just that there's always ideas and I can't sit still. Like a lot of people can sit still and watch TV for 4 or 5 hours and I just can't. I start to get fidgety and need to be doing things. So if you can find out how to switch off, that would be great if you could let me know. Personally, I find doing like this, making music is really good for me because it takes my mind out of the present and I stop thinking about things I have to do and what's coming up next week, and I focus entirely on making music, and it's great. Other people, they'll find going for walks helps. I find I walk my dog and my mind works overdrive because I'm just in that space where I'm thinking about nothing else but ideas in the future, and that can be a bit of a problem. So I find focusing on a a task like making music's really good. I don't really have many other hobbies, which is a problem. So it's only really this that works. If I liked playing computer games, then maybe that's a good way to relax. Something that you can concentrate fully on, that you're not thinking about other things and you're not thinking about tomorrow, stuff that you really exist in the moment. People meditate to do this. I can't be bothered with all that, but I do find making music makes me focus on a particular problem, and I can really get into it, and afterwards I feel so much better. And if I haven't done it for a while, I notice after I've made some music I feel really good afterwards. I think the only other thing that works for me is going to the gym, doing stuff like that, because not only are you tired when you come out of the gym, but you feel like you've accomplished something. And when you're in there, it's very difficult to be worrying about paying your bills or work if you're under 150 kilograms in the squat rack, because all you can think about is trying not to die. So I recommend taking up weightlifting. That usually works. Okay, last question. Dear Muchacho, I know you like to drink wine. What is the drunkest you've ever been? So this is a tricky one to answer because of legal reasons. My attorney has told me I can't go into a few court cases and talk about a few ongoing problems. So I'll talk about in all seriousness, it's a difficult one to answer because, I mean, there's times when you're a teenager, you got really drunk and, you almost died. And then there's times when you're an adult, you don't really go that stupid when you're an adult. But most of the time you forget, don't you? You don't really know. There's one time I don't remember, flying back from America. I got to the airport so early. I probably had about 6 hours in the airport, and obviously if you're in an airport and you've got nothing else to do, you go to the champagne bar, don't you? That's what any normal sane person does for 6 hours. So I went up there, started talking to some woman about golf. I don't know anything about golf. That's the last thing I remember, being at the bar. I've got a picture of my wine glass on the bar, talking to a woman about golf, and then I woke up mid-Atlantic. And I had this horrible feeling. I'm sat in the chair and I just wake up. Oh my God, what's happened? So the first thing that goes through my mind is, I'm not in handcuffs. This is good. I'm not arrested. And then I'm like looking around. Everyone else is asleep. It's nighttime. So I get the boarding pass out and it's like, my seat number. Check. Yeah, that's my seat. I'm in the right seat. Okay, that's good. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll get an orange juice and, try and get some more sleep, see what's going on. And then the lights come on, they're making breakfast. I'm like, oh, okay. Check my watch. I'm like, ooh, we're landing in an hour. Now you've got to bear in mind, this is an 8-hour flight. So I got so drunk in the airport, I don't know how I got on the plane. I had no idea how I got let on the plane. I'm not a nasty drunk, but I can't remember anything, and I must have been stumbling all over the place. They must have just thrown me on, found my seat somehow, and then slept for about 7 hours, and then woke up circling Heathrow. So it was quite a good plane ride, really. It was one of the most enjoyable ones. But in my adult life, I think that's the most drunk I've ever been. There's probably been other times, but like I say, let's not go over old court cases. Anyway, that's it for this time. That's a bit of a weird note to end on, isn't it? Any questions about life, music production, anything else, leave them in the comments, DM me, whatever, slide into my DMs, and I will catch you next time.